knew there was a secret somewhere in our family. And I just couldn't find it. Couldn't find the beginning of it. Going into the police departments to see if it was still true.
You were going to the police department to see if what was true.
I was 13. And my mother, while we were in Canada, my mother was shot again.
And your mom was shot from her boyfriend?
Yes. He actually shot himself.
Did he shoot your mom?
I have a picture of it in my head. I don't know quite what to do with that. Every single person. And see, I have these beautiful kids and I don't know what to do.
No, hey, it's okay. It's just the radio, Mom. Just the radio. It's difficult for humans to accept that some things cannot be explained rationally. Many of us personify the invisible. The more obscure the concept, the more elaborate the story to explain it. But there appears to be one ultimate human truth. If there really are invisible beings out there, entities that enter our world and leave their fingerprints on humanity, then only one of them leaves behind enough evidence to lay to rest all of the arguments raised against it. It happens to all of us once, but as a kid, I never understood why. So it became like a character in my mind, like the immortal godfather of an invisible crime syndicate. Every time he puts his signature on a document, one person disappears. His life revolves around harvesting other people's lives. To do this, he sends out assassins. Some take longer than others, some are more successful than others, but ultimately the contract is always fulfilled. He's the master of the hourglass. He studies the space between every human breath as if his own life depends on it. Since time began, we've spent fortunes and lifetimes dodging, hiding, and pretending we can ignore the summons to his dark palace. But in the end, we all stand before him. You can just rest and believe that you've done more than you should do. You've done above and beyond.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, you have nothing to worry about. Everybody knows that.
The great invisible.
What is it? I love you. Do you know that?
I love you.
Okay, good.
And you'll pass through the fire. Become invisible. And become invisible.
Today, Death is frustrated. Years ago, he sent assassins after a woman he grossly underestimated. Her will to live proved stronger than even his most reliable hitman. When Donna Silver, who friends affectionately refer to as Mama D, first comes to his attention, Death is reading over a file of numbers compiled by his favorite assassin. Satisfied with what he sees, he sends Cancer to Donna's door. Cancer fails, and Death sends it back. But it returns again, unsuccessful. Death is not happy. Here's the most feared being in the universe, who knows the intricacies of every breath we draw but appears to know nothing at all about women. He sure as hell doesn't know anything about mothers. So Death studies up. Mama D was born Donna L. Jean Perry in Spokane, Washington in April of 1942. She had one sibling, her older brother Robert. Her mother and father, their occupations, their lifestyles, and their friends remain the topic of debate even today.
My grandparents' history is completely veiled in this historical fog that we've been trying to cut through for decades. We know that Rosamond, my mom's mom, worked in the legal field, and she did pretty well. She had quite a few special guy friends at City Hall that she hung out with, and she would show up to my mom's piano recital when she was a girl and stand up on the seats, and she'd be drunk, and she would say, "That's my girl." Everyone would stare. And it must have been dramatic, because my mom still recoils when she tells that story.
Her father, Robert Allsworth Perry, was more legend than real person. He was a traveling businessman and a compulsive gambler, which meant the business trips were often extended. One trip in particular was extended permanently. And just like that, the mostly absent father was gone forever. Even less is known about the phantom Jay Wallace. He swooped in and filled the void in Rosamond's life after Robert vanished. Beyond that, he was the monster under the little girl's bed, and the shadow man she still fears today.
He had been shot. My grandfather turned and said, "We have to turn around, we have to go back home." And she was like maybe 6 or 7. He just left a big hole.
We don't know what happened, but we know that it drastically affected my mom. And it affected the way she grew up. It affected the way that she thought about herself from that moment on.
With help from her older brother, Donna scratched, bit, and kicked her way through childhood. And out of the darkness on the horizon of the rest of her life, 3 pillars emerge. Frances was a force of nature. Legends of her heroism made her seem like a fusion of the Queen of England and Joan of Arc. When she visited, she would use classic Mother Goose fairy tales as veiled reminders that her grandkids should always behave themselves. But to Donna, she was much more. She was queen and counselor. She pulled her and her brother out of the darkness of a sordid and mysterious home life. She worked 3 jobs to provide for them, instilled a strict moral code to keep them on the straight and narrow. She modeled for them a balance between strength and compassion by taking in foster children and neighborhood latchkey kids. Often Donna would wake up to go outside and play, only to find half a dozen youngsters sleeping on the living room floor. Most significantly, Frances taught Donna how to make a home out of a house. But most memorably, she admonished her to stand her ground and to never sit back and take abuse of any kind from a man. If Frances warned her not to tolerate abuse, it was Robert who showed her how it was done. He taught her how to go toe-to-toe with just about anyone, but he also taught her how to shoot. And eventually, he and his friends began to refer to her as Dead-Eye Donna. Both youngsters learned how to drive in a powder blue 1955 Chevy. For Donna, the car was a symbol of freedom and independence. Typical of American siblings, the arguments over who would get to take the car for a spin and when were often epic. But vehicular rivalry aside, Robert was Donna's hero. He was a model of strength and courage. And just when life couldn't get any better,
An allied force of more than 8,000 men today tightened its hold on the Batangan Peninsula on South Vietnam's central coast, trapping an undetermined number of North Vietnamese and Viet Cong troops.
During his tour of duty, Robert served as the captain's yeoman on the USS Coral Sea. After the war, he came home and started building a family of his own. The two remained close, and when he fell ill, Donna took him in and looked after him until Robert crossed the threshold into the great ever after in 2008.
And Bob, I don't know what, he was very, I love him. It's him.
Her older brother had protected her, instructed her, and inspired her. He made her a strong woman. Despite his fears to the contrary, he was a heroic brother and a world-class father who loved and raised amazing children who remain close to Donna and her family today.
We had a good visit with Mom. Uh-huh.
She was really good. We were there an hour.
And she looks at me all serious and says, "You're going to go the same way."
Every life has a pivotal force. One person who brings about a change so staggering that it defines the rest of their life. Dr. Hans Mouldenhauer was that man in Donna's life. He set the stage for the moment that would change her life forever. Hans was a world-renowned pianist and teacher. He collected rare original documents, most of which can be found in the Mouldenhauer archives in the Library of Congress. He started the Spokane Music Conservatory and began teaching piano to carefully selected students. Donna was 10 when she began her lessons. For the next 7 years, lessons, recitals, and concerts intensified. She was becoming a protege, and the doctor had big plans for her. Donna was 17 when she made the decision, effectively closing the door on her past and striking out on her journey to become the woman she is today.
This used to be a much easier story to tell because we'd heard the framework growing up. We came across this poetry book that my mom wrote back in the 50s. And the details in that poetry book have muddied the waters a little bit. We know there was an engagement for my mother to be married. We don't know if it was to my father or to this man named Vern. But we know that Hans Mouldenhauer heard of the engagement and panicked. So he calls my great-grandmother for a visit. He comes in, sits down, and he starts talking to her. He begs her to call off the wedding plans, basically, and he's met with silence. So he says, there's whispering in Carnegie Hall, and he wanted permission to train her to perform there. More silence. So Mouldenhauer sighs and says, have you heard anything that I'm saying? So Francis looks at him and says, I've heard everything you're saying. What I haven't heard is a reason for me to stand in the way of love. I've come to believe that somehow my mom knew that walking away from a career as a renowned concert pianist, she would be able to help more people and change more lives as a mother. And she was right. But I think had she known what was waiting for her around the corner, she would have given a little more thought to that philosophy.
Donna Perry became Donna Silver when she married a man named Donald, and together they started a family. She went to school and worked as a nurse's aide in the emergency room at Sacred Heart Medical Center. Strangely, unrelated to her work there, it is in that hospital that her story takes a darker turn.
It started with one of those old radiator stoves with the grates. I was 18 months old, and my parents were already concerned about my health because there was just constant crying, and it got to be where they couldn't take me out in public anymore. So one day, my mom was upstairs doing laundry, and she hears this just blood-curdling scream from downstairs. So she comes running down, and I've got my hands stuck in the grates, and they're wedged into place. So she reaches in, turns them, pulls them out, and I look at her, and I start crying again, and I stick them back in, and I rotate them and lock them into place, so I can't pull them out. And so she pulls them back out, and we go to the telephone, and I get a free ambulance ride. In the ER, she goes right to the doctor who's on duty, who also happens to be her boss, and she tells him what I've been up to. he takes me in and runs a battery of tests. He comes out, and instead of going towards her, he goes towards another doctor. And apparently he's trying to tell this doctor to tell my mom the news. But my mom sees it, and she makes a beeline towards him and says, no, no games, just spill it. Tell me what's going on. So he said, Donna, we believe that we know why JJ's been doing what he's doing. The test results showed inflammation that was so severe, he was actually trying to dislodge his hands because he thought in his mind it would be better to live without hands than to live with the excruciating pain. It was at that point that he gave her the diagnosis.
Not yet 2 years old, John Justin had developed a severe form of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Donna would spend the better part of the next 4 years with her son in the intensive care unit, just 2 floors above the emergency room nurse's station where she clocked in and out of work every day. The family attributes JJ's eventual recovery to the prayers of a mother and of a church who rallied around the family. Bruised but not crushed, the family pulls together and steps into another chapter of Mama D's life.
To sum up her life and the impact she's had on so many other lives, even up to this point, would be its own miracle. To me, her son, she's the reason I still dream, that I still imagine and still tell stories. She's the reason I even entertain the notion of an afterlife. In fact, she's the reason I'm still alive. And that's true more than once.
Life moved forward for Donna, bringing with it both sunshine and storm clouds. She weathered a divorce and watched as close friends and family members fell prey to death's assassins. In the worst of it, Donna always remembered Frances. She recalled how her grandmother never gave in to difficult times. She shored up her circumstances with the only brace that keeps the walls from closing in completely: other people. Donna filled her life with lots of them. Soon, stories her kids had heard when they were growing up became their reality. Donna took in her children's friends, strangers, foreign exchange students. At some point, everyone ended up sleeping on the living room floor, and life slowly returned to Mama D's home. By 2010, Donna is living in the magnificent world she created for herself with the help of 3 people she always refers to as heroes. She is a mother, a friend, professional, and a servant of the God she has loved since childhood. Earth was beginning to feel a lot like heaven for Mama D. But real heaven will not be had in this life without a signature from the master of the hourglass. Now, Death finds himself in the position of having to delve deep into the archive of assassins. He will have to call upon his least favorite contractor, a killer so inefficient and ham-fisted that it can take years to get the job done. But the numbers don't lie. A visit from this dark horse will eventually close your file. Stone by stone, Donna had built up her dream, and day by day, it will all come crashing down.